Good morning, everyone. I am Aniko Varadi, professor in biomedical research, and the reason why I am here is because I selected the outputs for RA 2008 in Biomedical Sciences, and we did really well that time. And I had the pleasure to co-lead the UWE 3 submission to allied health profession from the university this time. I don't know how well we did on that one, but I hope that we will get results what we got for RA 2008. So, because I am still in ref mode, I will start with a little bit what we had for ref, and then I try to translate it for you, what impact it has on you as a scientist and how you should actually view ref and your career alongside each other. You will see it later on that it's very difficult to actually pinpoint what is an internationally excellent publication. So what is a 3-star paper in ref language? So I'll show you what is a 2-star paper and what is a 3-star by definition, or what is the requirement. And for 2-star, you still have to have something which is published in an international journal, internationally recognized. It has influence on policy and practice. It has impact, but the impact is a non-lasting impact. And if you compare it to what is a 3-star, it's very similar. It's just a little bit saying that it's recognized at international level, same as the 2-star, but it has a significant impact on policy, practices, and it has a lasting impact. So you can say, all right, so how do you know what is a 2-star and what is a 3-star? And it's actually very difficult to know. So I can share the experience we had, because we looked at, in the submission we had 19 academics from Biomedical Sciences. And gosh, I don't do the maths this morning, but altogether we had 56 submitted in that unit of assessment, and many colleagues were not submitted. So you can imagine that I had to select 4 publications most of the time for these people, and many of them were not selected. So we really looked at lots and lots of papers. And we had to have some sorts of criteria, some sorts of criteria on how we select, or what do we think would be a 3-star, or perhaps even better, a 4-star. So what you would expect from an internationally excellent or perhaps a world-leading paper is that it tried to show something first time, something which is really, really important. And other scientists try to follow that lead and try to either reproduce or perhaps build on what you have done. That's definitely a paper which I would say it's internationally excellent. If there is a hypothesis which stood for several years, actually hundreds of years perhaps, and you come up with a totally different hypothesis and you can prove it, that it's actually whatever we believed was wrong, then obviously that's either an internationally excellent or a world leading. You can look at data set and perhaps present it in a totally different point of view, which again generates a totally new knowledge. That's what we would say that it's internationally excellent and world leading. And one thing what all of them are in common, I think I just tried, maybe there is no laser on this, that all of them, most of the time, attract high citation. So people will look at it. I know that lots of people said that actually citation, how informative it is. You know, you need to have some metrics which would show that your paper has some impact in academia within your academic colleagues. So it could be that you have an extremely high citation. You published, if it's, for example, in the last year or 2 when it was published, maybe it doesn't have high citation, but you managed to get it into a very high impact or a very good journal. It's very difficult to convince the reviewers if you don't publish your paper in a good journal, it doesn't have a high citation, no one read it, that it's actually a 3-star. So this is a summary. I plagiarized it from Leeds University. I'm sorry about it, but I think this was probably the only university I have found on the internet who published the analysis after the RAE 2008. And what they found was that they underestimated the world-leading articles. But to be honest, it's very difficult to make a judgment again whether something is world-leading or internationally excellent. And because during the RAE 2008, all publications which were 2, 3, or 4 star, they brought some funding to the university. We didn't really bother to separate the world-leading from internationally excellent. We just said they are, yeah, brilliant, they are very good, they are somewhere there. So they also underestimated it, and we did it as well. But one place which made me think, and I was very, very cautious, that it's very easy to overestimate the 3-star papers versus the 2 stars. And because for REF this time, we only get funding for papers or outputs which are 3-star or 4-star, we had to make sure that we make a clear distinction between the two, and we don't overestimate the 3 stars. We frequently hear it from leaders when they talk about REF, that it's not important where you publish your paper. If you look at it there, you can see that 25 of the 4-star publications were published in Nature or Science. So whether we like it or not, normally the papers which get into Science or Nature, they are good quality. I think everyone in this room, I am sure that you all want to have a paper published in Nature or Science. We are probably just a bit jealous that they made it and we didn't. So you need to aim high. And they also find that the remaining 12 papers which were 4-star, they were published in the top journals in the discipline. So I will show you how you can find your journals. So basically, it matters where you publish it. So if you have a very good piece of work, then why don't you publish it in the top journals? Those are the journals which are read by the top scientists, the leading scientists in the field. They will, if they cite your paper, other people will have a look at it and, oh, I would like to see this paper. So you need to publish somewhere where it's important. So, okay, you said, fine, REF is gone, who cares about it? We have now lots of time. But actually what we use for REF, your career is judged exactly the same way. So if you have 1 or 2 brilliant publications, that could provide you with a very good academic position. So it's really important that you have very good publications, because that could set up your career for your entire life. The other thing is that it's very important that what you publish is high quality. So I know that when you go for promotion within UWE, or when you apply for SPUR funding, for example, they ask you in some parts that list your publications, and you feel that, oh my God, if I don't have 25 here, then I should feel that small. Actually, to get a very good publication, a 3, 4-star publication, it takes time. 6 months is not going to be enough. You need time for that. So I think we might need to reconsider, when we put those forms for you to fill in, is it really a good question that what is going to be the output or publication of your 6 months project? Because this is basically, I am pushing you that go and publish it somewhere small. Why, maybe if you would work on it a little bit more, it would generate that high impact paper what we need, or what you need. So even if you leave as a postdoc, you move to a different university, it reflects well on us that at UWE someone managed to produce a 3-star publication and ended up in a very good academic position elsewhere. And obviously we are here to make important discoveries. So it's important that we work on something which is interesting and you really feel excited about it. So what do you need for a 3-star paper? You need to have a very good idea. So now you can say, oh, but my supervisor submitted the grant for BBSRC. They said I need to work on this one. I cannot lead, I cannot drive this project. Actually, you can, because I have written the grant application. By the time we get funding, probably someone already done what I wanted to do. So you need to really build on. You need to read papers. You need to be up to date what's going on. And you are the one who is employed to do the research. And it's up to you to make it into exciting, to make it into relevant, and bring what you want to put in, looking at the recent literature. So actually you are in the driving seat, and you can put the great idea into a project with your supervisor. So don't say that, oh, the project was set. No, it's never set, because by the time we have the funding, you might have several different problems, new problems, which are maybe which are relevant, but more exciting than the original was. And one thing what I have seen when looking at all these publications for REF, that lots of research groups published lots of papers, like 20-something papers within 3 years. If you have a large research group, so you have 20 postdocs, you can do that. If you have 1 or 2 or 3 postdocs, which is probably the most common at UWE, then I question that, really, do you really need to publish 20 papers, which none of them are 3-star? What if you would just maybe spend a little bit more time, look at the question a little bit better, and whether perhaps you could make it into a 3-star. And again, I know that for promotions, for filling out forms, we need to list our publications. And it doesn't look good if you only list 1 or 2, you need to have 20. But 20 1 or 2 stars, they are not going to make any change for REF, and it's not good for your career. So if someone applies for a job and has 1 or 2 very good publications, and there is someone with 15, but like 1 or 2 star, I would go for the one who have these 2 publications. So you need to really think about it, how you want to publish. But the problem with publishing 1 or 2, that it can take 2-3 years by the time you finish the project. By that time, your funding is just about to finish. You submit the paper, and if you go for a very good journal, they will ask for extra experiments, they will ask for extra stuff, which means that, yes, someone else might need to finish the job. So I know that that might not be perfect for your career, so we need to find this balance where you can produce very good work, and we can publish it in high-impact journals, but somehow it would fit into the 3 years where you have the funding, normally 3 years. And you know, when you apply for jobs, I just have a postdoc who just finished, and we have about 6 papers just more or less ready to be published, and she needs to find a job. And it doesn't look good on your CV saying that, oh, these are in the pipeline, but we haven't published them. So I know that we have to be a bit careful there, because that could be affecting your career when you apply for another job. So I just wanted to show you, because I thought I need to show you something a little bit scientific. So I just want to show you how you can actually make something, rather than having 1 or 2 star paper, to actually carry on and make it into a good 3-star. So when we originally started our project, we started with this model. And we were interested in some of the proteins. And we ended up with this. So basically from this point onwards, it's ours. So everything we put on this model, it's our work. We could have stopped here. And if we would have stopped at this level, I think it probably would have gone into a 2/3 star, but I wasn't absolutely sure whether it's a 3-star paper. But because we went on and we actually investigated the entire, every single step which could possibly come up, this made it into something totally new and a very good 3-star paper. So my advice would be that make a model in your head. What is your scientific question? And try to look at it from every angle, what's missing from the model, and try to see what is the minimum you need to have to publish into, let's say, a 2-star paper, and think about it, how can you actually add to it to make it more relevant for many people, more exciting, and maybe acceptable for a very good high-impact journal. So there are some basic stuff which could have gone into, probably this one paper could have been divided into 3 small papers. Those wouldn't have been 3-star paper, this was. So that's what I would do if you have 3 years to do that. So this was actually 3 years work of a postdoc. The other thing is, I already mentioned that you need to publish in the top journals. So you need to know your top journals. You would be surprised how many academics, senior academics, who didn't know what are the top 10 journals in their own field. You need to know your field. I mean, if you don't know it, then who would know it? So you are the one who need to know what are the top journals where you need to aim for. And impact factors, I know that they say don't use impact factors. You can use impact factors, but you need to be a bit careful. So impact factors are actually telling how good a particular journal is, because it looks at the citation and the number of journals published in the previous 2 years. So it gives a very good guideline how good that particular journal is. So I just show you, I'm sorry, I am a scientist, so we use Web of Science. I know that it has its own faults, but Web of Science is brilliant because it would give you a citation index for or ranking of journals in the subject category. And you can also look at individual citations for papers. So I just wanted to show you, I don't know whether you can see it, but basically here are sorted some of the papers in endocrinology and metabolism. And it's sorted based on impact factors. And you need to go through the title of the journals, and if you look at it in the top 12, there are only 2 where you can put original articles. So I said, okay, I am going for Diabetologia because that's the second top journal in my own field, and I am publishing there. Impact factor is 6.4. If it's in cell biology, that's not very exciting because it's a relatively low impact factor. But in this subject category, this is a brilliant impact factor. This is one of the top journals where you can go and people recognize it. Academics read it, but because it's diabetology or diabetes, therefore clinicians would read it as well. So it has a wide audience. You need to go into your own subject category and have a look at what are the top journals, where can you publish that piece of work. And when you write a paper, I don't want to go on the writing part because Kate is going to do that, but when you write a paper, you need to look at what the journal is asking for. So you need to have a journal in your head, and you need to write your work accordingly. So you follow the instruction word by word, because these journals, Diabetologia, they reject 80% of the papers. And I know that we say, oh, why to publish in the top journals? They have very rigorous peer review process. So if the paper is not good, it's not going to get accepted. Okay, some can just slip through, very rare. The majority would be good quality papers, and they are highly cited. Normally, the editorial board has senior academics who are internationally recognized in their own field. So when you have a peer review process like that, it makes your paper better. Okay, when you get the referees' comments and they just say how rubbish your work, probably you need to go in a corner, cry a bit, and then think and try to make it better. Trust me, in the end, your paper is going to be better, but it might take 9 months, 9 to 12 months after the first submission to the last date. That's the price you have to pay for a good 3-star paper. So yes, sometimes I just thought, oh gosh, why do we want to publish in this one? Can't we just maybe go for a little bit lower down, and then we could forget about it. I wouldn't need to write another letter to the editor. I don't need to defend why I did this or that. It is painful because they will find the holes in your work, but the end product will be good. And I wanted to finish it here, but then we recently had a paper, and I was a bit surprised, I have to say. I thought that I know almost everything you can know about papers, done the RA 2008 ref for this round, and I never really considered these very fast open access journals. I know that you will have a discussion about it later on today, but we had a paper which I think it's novel, it's interesting, but it's a small one, so it's not like 25 pages long what I normally publish. This is only like 5 pages. And I thought, I'm not sure that I should bother even publishing it. So we sent it to BMC Genetics. And I didn't even look at it. I was glad when it was accepted. And it turned out that within 30 days, 757 people accessed it. So if you look at someone's career who has a good papers by this stage, normally if you have 1,000, 2,000 citations in your career, that's very good. But having 757 accesses, that was a surprise for me, I have to say. So this is the paper, and they downloaded it that many times, so it means that it has an academic impact. So you might want to consider some of the open access journals, because I think they are going to change the way we publish. I know that now some of the funding bodies will respond to the open access journals, and they might have their own open access journals. So this all will change. But certainly this made me rethink how you publish or how you have impact in the academic field. And this journal, by any means, I wouldn't consider it as a top journal, but because so many people look at it, and it has, I mean, it's highly accessible, it's a good work, but I wouldn't have put this one as something very exciting. So just to finish it off, obviously you need to look at how original your work is, the rigor of your work, how significant it is. And if the originality is there and the rigor, but no one reads the paper, then unfortunately it's again not going to be a 3-star paper. So you need to look at all these together. And one thing I learned again through the ref process, that it's very good to state your contribution, particularly for research associates, research fellows, because research fellows could be submitted for ref. And if your contribution is not listed, and because this time you didn't have to be the first or the last author, so first author who done the work, last who is the corresponding author. If you were at the middle, both of you, who decides who submits that particular paper? Who would be submitted for ref? And we had 1 or 2 cases where I was just like, I cannot make that decision for you. This has to be by the person who is the corresponding author of the paper. And because normally it goes by seniority, research fellows could fall short. So it's very good if you have a statement at the end of the paper stating that this and this and this was your contribution and this was someone else's contribution. They might change for next ref that you need to be first and last author. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's important to protect you, because it's important that you are recognized and you are submitted for the next research assessment. I think that was my last one, yes. So thank you very much. And
how much time do you have?
I have a good 15 minutes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Should we open up to any questions? I mean, a really interesting overview, I think. Some quite a lot of differences in the protocols between the sciences and social sciences that people may have questions about as well. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
Do editors of high impact journals look for the track record, or do they just look at the publication that they're reviewing?
They look at the publication. So in science, so in the field where I published, and actually I looked at the biomedical science or bioscience, it's your publication. Just your publication. So it doesn't matter whether you are publishing from UWE or University of Cambridge, they look at the quality. So I never ever experienced that your publication would be discriminated where you are coming from or what track record you have.
Not so much where you're coming from, but whether or not you had a track record in publishing before. So are they looking to see whether you have published perhaps, can a new publisher or new author go straight into a high impact journal?
Yes, yeah.
To have published previously?
Yeah, if you have a good piece of work, you can submit it and they will look at it exactly the same way as they would look at for others. Okay, in some of the journals, if you are an editor, you can automatically publish some of the papers there, but it goes through a peer review process. And the peer review process is, they just simply assign, it's very automatic, they assign some reviewers if they think that your paper fits in the remit of the journal, and they just send it out to reviewers. Most of the time you can actually state who you want or who you want to exclude and who you want perhaps to review your paper. They might or might not follow that instruction, but no, you can go wherever you want. You don't need to start, with a one-star paper and then work up from there, no. Yes?
This is a slightly more general question, I suppose, but follows on from Joe's. What role or responsibility should senior colleagues have in assisting early career researchers publish in high impact journals? And what is the university doing about this, if they should be?
Okay, all right. So I can answer the first part. I think senior researchers like myself, I have the full responsibility that I guide you towards the best possible journal. And I can discuss it with you. So I think it's a sort of discussion, but on the other hand, because we have probably more experience than you have, so probably the best way is to discuss, okay, I am thinking about this and this and these journals. What do you think? Have a look at it. Have a look at how it fits into that particular journal. I give you one example. Again, the postdoc who just finished, she wanted to go for a higher impact than I wanted. I thought that, I am not sure. I submitted it where she wanted it, but I told her that, look, it's very likely that it will come back as a boomerang, and we need to reformat it and send it elsewhere. Are you happy with that? Fine. So we sent it to a better journal. We are waiting. But, and I think it will come back, but I think it's basically because you don't have the experience just yet. You need to have someone to tell you that, look, in your own field, I would think I would go for this and this and this one, because these are good papers. But having said that, have a look at what are the top journals in your own field, because your career is a little bit depends on you. Okay, you need the support of a senior person, but it's up to you what you make of it. So if you feel that actually this should go into a better journal and it fits very well into that journal because there are several papers, similar type of papers published in that journal, then try it. Why not? But be prepared that you might need to send it to 4 different journals by the time you end up with the final one. It takes a bit of time. It takes reformatting because unfortunately they all want something slightly different just to make life a bit more difficult. But yes, I think it's you and your supervisor who should make the decisions. And if you feel that the work is better, then try to go for a better one. In terms of what the university is doing, I guess the Researcher Forum is part of it. But I think it's also very individual. I know that I am very hands-on in terms of I want to publish in good journals. So yeah, I drive my people that way. But whether every research groups are like this or not, that's again very different. So I don't know whether you can have, because we are coming from different backgrounds, different journals. So maybe my advice is totally inappropriate for some subject area and very much true for biomedical science. I can tell you what I think in my own field, but you would hear something totally different on a different field. So maybe discuss it in your own field, or have discussion or have seminars from different fields, because we are so different and it's very difficult to put one scheme for everyone. That would be sorry, I didn't quite answer your question. So I think you need to go to someone who makes this decision, and that's not me. Sorry. Yes, sorry.
Thank you for your inspirational talk. You mentioned something around time, that writing a very good paper needs a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure whether you can answer this question. Also, it is different probably in the hard sciences and other areas of science like social sciences, but sometimes the nature of projects we do might not lend itself to publishing, and so we need even more time to do that. And we end up at the end of our contract or at the end of the project, and we've done everything on the project. We've produced reports for the funding body, which might not be a research council, might be a local council or government agency or else, or the European Commission. But that's not for publication, that's a report for the funding body, might be 10 reports. And then you end up at the end of the project with no time to do your 3-star publication. And then, if you're lucky, you get another contract and you work in a different project, and you start all over again. So what would be your advice, how to cope with that situation?
Okay, I mean, as a scientist, I was always like, but maybe because my supervisors were very much driven that way, that you need to have an end product. So when you finish the project, you had to have something published. So in your field, if you know that there won't be a publication, definitely they don't plan to have a publication, which I don't fully understand, because I think if it's possible, if there is no reason why there are no sensitive issues in it why you cannot publish, I think it would be good to publish. But one thing what you can do, if it's not sensitive, that you go and present your work on international conferences. Because if someone is presenting on an international conference, it means that you have result. So you have something you have produced during the time you were there. So that's one way of showing that you have something, some outcome of your work. But I would negotiate with the supervisor that actually I would like to finish it off, and if it's not you but someone else is taking it over, that you have a joint first authorship, for example, for a paper if it's carried on. So probably after about a year and a half in your position, you know that you have another year and a half. This is probably ends up with a good project. So at that stage, you need to discuss it with your supervisor. How can we get it out in the public domain as a publication, whatever is recognized in your own field, that you have something to show for that. Something, some end result, whether it's changing policy, whether it's just a small work, whatever format you can publish it to show that you have done it. Because otherwise, yes, you work for 3 years and then what can you show for it? And in academia, you need to produce some new knowledge somewhere, and the best way is publishing it. So I would go for the publication. And it might take maybe 5-6 years after you finished, but maybe there is someone on it.
Yeah, the problem is you might not be in the same job.
It doesn't matter that you are not in the same job. I had people who left.
Out of the job.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you are out of the job, I am talking about the publication, not contracts. So let's say you don't have enough data or it might not be published within the 3 years. I had like this, that we published 5 years after someone started, so basically it took 5 years. But the person who originally done the work and the idea came from us, the person was a joint first author on the paper. So you might have joint authorships. I never take away work from someone who has done the work. So I have a paper where we have 3 joint first authors because they contributed equally to the work, and I acknowledged it. That's why I said, have your work acknowledged. So your contribution should be there. And I think whichever field you are in, you need to have some output from your work. And probably at the beginning, you don't see it clearly what the output is going to be, but after about a year, year and a half, you should be able to see, okay, that's what I need to have by the end of my contract. And you need to drive it. You need to say, okay, that's what I would like to have, and unless it's working with, I don't know, industry where they don't want to publish, or if you have a patent, but then you will have a patent at the end of it. So you need to have something at the end that you can show for. It might not happen within 3 years. That's a possible problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but what I'm saying is the university with the REF and the wider academic environment will judge me on the basis of the publication I produce. I've produced like 10 reports for the European Commission, which were highly praised, but I don't feel I'm judged and I'm assessed on the basis of how good I was in that, because I didn't produce the 3-star on that. And actually I'm in the ref, but with other papers I had produced before in my previous life in another university. But yeah, no, that's fine, thank you.
Sorry, then, yeah?
Yeah, and you almost answered my question, the problem between publishing paper and have a patent. Because I'm in that side kind of group research where the people, the finances, or the project leader want to have a patent.
Yeah.
So I can't publish.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. But
there's the problem that, are we going to have a patent in the end of it? I don't know. I might lose on paper with the patent at the final step.
yes, you are. So with this ref, I think we submitted one patent because I pushed it. I pushed in our ref submission because in the impact part, they recognize working with industry. In the environment template, you need to talk about industry. And I said that they couldn't publish because you need to go through the hurdle of getting everything approved. It takes years. And I said, I think it's equally as good as a publication. So we have the patent, and now they are publishing the papers. If you put it on your CV, that's why you are not publishing yet, everyone would understand it who knows the field. So you have an end product because you have a patent. If it doesn't happen, because it can fall through, it's not up to you. It's up to the decision of the whoever is decide on the patent. But then there is absolutely no reason why you cannot publish the papers afterwards.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be like
yes, there will be a delay. But if I see that in your career or in your CV, I wouldn't be worried about it. When it comes to promotions or when it comes to any applications, I am not sure that we look at it that way. It's just like, oh, patent, why you didn't publish this paper? Oh, okay, 20 pages. So I think we need to change when your application is assessed. We need to assess it differently because research councils look at it that way. You know, if you put it that it's the work is patentable and the negotiation is still going on, they are not insisting on 5 other publications. So I think we just need to follow what the research councils are doing. So we don't need to do anything new. It's totally recognized.
So for the ref, even patent might be.
Yes. Yeah. It was submitted. So we definitely submitted one for us. Yeah.
I just wondered if you could discuss authorship, because so in sciences, you know, first and last,
Yeah.
and then more like social sciences, you know, last kind of doesn't count, or last is counts. Anyway, there's a difference between the fields.
So how, and sometimes when you've got a large group like in rehabilitation, a clinical team, and everyone's on the list, so how do you make sure that that paper counts for you? And when you're working with different fields and they've got different ways of assessing first and last and so on, you know, what do you do?
Okay, I would insist that the person who has done the job in the lab or whenever and got his or her hand dirty should be the first one. If I had 3 of them in the lab who did the same thing, that the 3 of them would be, I said alphabetical order because probably that's the easiest, but there is a footnote saying that they contributed equally to the work. And now more and more journals ask for author's contribution. So what we did, we have a project right now with clinicians. And you know, when you work with clinicians, whoever collected the sample or ever seen the patient or senior in a senior position might want to be or have the funding to collect some of the blood, but I never physically met the person, they still want to be on the paper. That person's contribution in my mind is less than the clinician who might be collecting blood samples for me after every difficult labor or delivery of a baby, because that's what we are working on. So clearly, for me, that's more important, more relevant. So I asked them each to state what they did. So basically, first author said that I carried out all experimental work, end of story. Then the next one is collected whatever patient samples. Whoever, because if you have 20-something people, they don't always look at the manuscript, they don't really add anything to it. So those few people who actually do the majority of the work, then I would state, okay, these are the ones who have written the paper, who have dealt with everything. So in that way, it's absolutely clear-cut who did what. And if it's in a different field, I don't know how it works for different fields, because I know that sometimes they put it in alphabetical order. I think it's useful to have a list where you state everything, because then there is absolutely no question. And I haven't seen a journal where they would ask you to delete this statement. It's important for you, for your career. And it's also when it comes to like ref discussions, it clears there. It's just like, okay, you agreed with me here that this what I contributed. This is much larger contribution than this one. I'm sorry, this is my paper.
And could you explain about that as well, so who counts? So if you were 3 joint authors, would you all get to submit it?
Okay, yeah. For ref, you need to be in a permanent academic position, or you were a research fellow. It's very unlikely that you would have 3 research fellows in the same lab. So you can only include them if they are research fellows, for example. You cannot include as a research associate. So we didn't have many research fellows submitted. We had can't remember, probably 1, 2, 3 research fellows submitted. So we didn't have that issue. It didn't come up. This one, this one hasn't came up.
So normally it's just first, then
Yeah. But where we had an issue was they were middle authors, and both of them claimed that paper. And because there was no statement, and neither of them were the first or the last, but it's very clear cut, I was just like, I don't know what to do with you. So I said, okay, you need to ask the corresponding author what contribution you had, because that person has the most knowledge, and then give that paper to someone who actually deserves it. If it's equal, then I don't know. That's where I said that it's tricky. It can become very tricky, but we only had 1 like this out of the, I don't know how many we looked at. So it's not very frequent, but I think it's good to think strategically and for long term, because you might need that publication. I don't know.
It's very different in different subject areas in social sciences. It doesn't, I mean, first author tends to be the lead, but you tend to establish an authorship protocol at the beginning of any project. So sometimes the PI who won the grant is always the first author on projects. Some people work like that. Other academics work with whoever's done the most work. Even if it's an RA, they go go first, you know, so that it varies a lot. And we only had one fight over one paper in the submission that I worked on, and as well, I mean, everybody worked it out between themselves, and in that case I just said, you've just got to go away and agree. And the problem is between the person who had the idea and the person who did all the work.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the sort of thing that you need to iron out
Mhm.
early on before
Yeah.
you even start working on papers.
Mhm.
But could they both count it if they're first and
No.
last? No.
No.
So it has to go to either the first or
One
the
or
last.
the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
Yeah.
In very rare exceptions, you can, at different subjects, you can put in the same
Mhm.
output for two people, but you have to make a special case to do that. So it's easier not to really.
And can two institutions submit the same
Yeah.
paper?
Yes.
Same paper can
Okay.
go
Yeah.
between. And
So if you a research fellow who moved, then
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same within the same institution, the same output
Mhm.
can go to two units of assessment as well.
Mhm.
So if you collaborate with someone within UWE, you can both put it in.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, was there anything else? Because sorry,
It was just on the end of
Yeah.
that, you know when you said like it's between who had the idea and who does most of the work, there is quite a tension there. So have you got any advice how you would manage that if you're perhaps the person that's doing the work, but the person with the idea might want to be the first author?
It's really difficult, and you need people to be reasonable. I think all of us have had this at some point in their career, but I do think a lot of the time researchers, and you know, I was in this position as well, forget that somebody had the idea which brought the money in, and if the money wasn't there, you wouldn't even have a job. You know, and that is the bottom line often, that if it was someone else's idea and someone wrote the grant, and that grant is funding you to do the job, really they kind of have the, you know, but some kind of, you know, fairer senior academics aren't that bothered and will say, well, you still can be first author, I don't know. And the other thing is very important is to have a team strategy and a plan for the rep, so that these things don't hit you, you know, a year before, so that even early on you're going, well, hang on, how's this shaping up? Oh, well, I've already got my 4 papers, so actually it'd be better if you went, you know, and to have a team strategy if you can, and then that sort of takes away some of this friction.
Does the statement you said about putting different contributions, does that help get around that? Because I don't want to get into a big bun fight over who's in which sequence. But if you stated who, you know,
Not
did
really,
the
because
occurrence-
only one of you can submit it.
Yeah, I mean it's only an issue with that case because 2 academics could claim the paper, but it wasn't the senior author or it wasn't the first author, so it was at the middle. So it was a bit weird. We sorted it out in the end. I am not sure that it was for the benefit of a research fellow, and actually I felt sorry for the research fellow, but nothing I could do about it. I think contributions sometimes important. If it comes to disagreement, it's better to be included there and then, because then it's very clear cut. And sometimes people tend to forget that what contribution they actually had and try to believe that everything came from them. So in my mind, if someone has the funding and had the original idea and got the funding, that person is the senior author on the paper, wherever it is, first or last or whatever. In bioscience, we normally put that person as a last one and the person who done the work as a first author. For us, we always look at the first author papers and the last author papers. It could be different in different fields, but I think academics are I did find that they were very flexible, because we had one case when one of our postdoc was appointed as a lecturer in the last minute, and last minute for F. And she had 4 papers. Her supervisor had to submit 3. I changed the senior academics papers. One was into a patent. We played with the papers, and the senior academic just said, look, I am close to retirement. It's not really that important for me anymore, but it's very important for my young colleague who just started her career. And she just said, look, Aniko, you do whatever you want. If you want to leave me out, I am fine with that. If you keep me in, then just make sure that the best is for the research associate, or I mean, who was the research associate at that stage and just got appointed. And then I played with patents and everything to make sure that actually both of them were included in ref. So I only had one paper where we had sort of negative feel about the discussion, but the rest was very open, and it was like, it's better for her career, so put her in. And that was it. End of story. And you just thought, oh, okay, no discussion. Because I was a bit nervous that, oh my God, what are we going to do here? Because it's not absolutely clear cut. I had to play a little bit with the papers. And you know, in the last minute, I had to say, okay, so we are allocating these for these people, these for that one. Could you please change all this? And you know, when maybe a week before ref submission, I think admin office wasn't very, very pleased with me that, oh my God, she comes again and she wants to rejiggle the whole thing. But the discussions were actually quite pleasant, and I did find that many of the supervisors or the senior academics, they were very, very supportive of their own postdocs or researchers, and they really wanted them to succeed and be included in ref. So I didn't really have, or maybe I was just lucky, but I didn't really see where the senior academic wasn't supportive enough towards a research associate, and they wanted them to be included because it's good for them. If no further questions, sorry, I need to go and teach now.